Hello and welcome to another edition of the SHRM Labs Workplace Tech Spotlight. My name is Guillermo Corea, Managing Director of SHRM Labs, SHRM's Workplace Innovation Lab. I will be your host for this new series where we shine a spotlight on some of the most interesting future of work innovators and disruptive technologies. Before we get started with today's topic, just a little housekeeping and general announcements. For any startups out there listening to us, the Workplace Tech Accelerator application period for the 2023 cohort opened on December 1st and will close on January 16th. Also, the application period for the Better Workplaces Challenge Cup, the leading workplace tech pitch competition, is open, and the deadline for startups to apply is January 15th. This year, we're further expanding the competition globally and adding a new track for SHRM members to showcase how the people who know the workplace the best, HR, are innovating. The application period for individual SHRM members will be opening on January 2nd. The winner of this competition will receive a trip to the SHRM Annual Conference and Exposition, which is happening next year in Las Vegas from June 11th through the 14th. As many of you know, this is the largest HR conference in the world. This year, we actually had about 16,000 people, so we're getting back to our pre-pandemic numbers. Also, in case you didn't hear this week, we are thrilled that music legend Janet Jackson will be performing at the Tuesday night concert. Lastly, for those of you watching on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, please share this live stream and tag SHRM. You can also use the hashtags SHRM Labs and Workplace Tech. So let's get to today's topic. So today we're going to be touching on a topic that is timely as we're about to welcome 2023, especially when you consider a lot of the issues around teams and employees and and the workplace in general, right? So today's topic is centered on using data to develop and support exceptional teams. As we all know, the team an employee works on makes a huge difference in the workplace. From SHRM's 2022 Global Cultural Research, we found that nearly 9 in 10 workers, or 87%, indicated that their manager contributes to setting their work team environment. We also saw that 54% of workers who are looking for a new job believe their supervisor doesn't know how to lead a team. So joining us to talk about this topic today is John Estafanous, founder and CEO of RallyBright. John, thanks so much for joining us today and welcome to the stage. Before we begin, maybe you can tell us a little bit about RallyBright so that our audience gets to know you guys a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Guillermo. Very happy to be here. So a little bit about me and RallyBright. Many years ago, I made the mistake of going to law school and realized I liked working on teams and with data and technology. And
I think a lot of people make that mistake, by the way.
Yeah. And I was really fortunate to work on some incredibly impactful teams ranging from small startups to globally distributed teams and teams of teams. And what research and experience has showed us is that it's incredibly hard to develop clear lines of sight into and to actually get predictive about how teams are going to handle disruption, which is something we've all become very, very familiar with. So really wanted to find something that provided the data and the playbooks to understand what drives superior performance and positive team dynamics in a scalable and actionable way. So that's what RallyBright does. We've created a way to draw data-driven insights around teams and give leaders the science, the software, and the skills to build what we call exceptional teams. And what's really exciting is we're collecting a lot of great data, high quality data focused on teams, and we can provide that, and we work with HR teams and leaders to give them a tool to measure and track and improve the key employee experience drivers.
Okay, fantastic. So let's get right to it because we have a short period of time here. So obviously, teams make a huge difference, right? In the employee experience, the workplace culture. You just heard me say that, through our research, we found that 9 in 10 employees indicated that their manager contributes to setting, the overall work team environment. So, team leadership has an important role in creating a positive work environment for employees. Can you talk to us more about, what you've learned about creating effective teams and the common pitfalls you see in other teams?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great question because there's no doubt that managers are directly impacting team performance and dynamics. First and foremost, I would say not having a model. You need a model. You need to be able to measure so that way you can manage. So I think that's one of the first key things is how are you going to measure things outside of core business metrics to really understand what's happening with your teams. And there are countless of leadership books and other things out there, but do they really have a model that you can implement today? Second is the team has to have a purpose, and that has to be a shared purpose amongst the team. And what we found is that teams with a strong shared purpose that usually and should line up to the organizational mission and values, they're the ones that tend to perform better and adapt better to disruption over time. And then the third is really just focus on inclusion, like understand how the team is feeling about the work, not just doing the work. And what we found is that belonging, where we look at contribution and connection, is a key driver to employee satisfaction and turnover intent. So how do you foster areas around that? Because when people don't feel like they're connected, they're not going to stick around. And that leads to some of the problems that teams are encountering.
So based on the customers that you guys work with, or have you been able to gain any insights into maybe some of the, I don't know, tactics that they're using to, like for example, if you have a team that feels that they're getting burnt out, right? What are some of the tactics that your customers are implementing to alleviate some of that?
Yeah, we always like to say start with data. So you may have a feeling of what's happening on your team, but you're not necessarily going to have the data to back that up, or you may have a skewed view. So I think first collect the data, and then there are tools that you can use and there are exercises you can do around how do we develop a shared purpose where we actually define what we're trying to accomplish as a group. You can dig into exercises and have, it's first creating the model and understanding the data around that model, but ultimately it's giving people a space to contribute to those models as well. So understanding, for example, how does the team perceive psychological safety? How do we view our biases? And how do we surface those biases in a safe way amongst one another? So just being attuned to that and how those ladder into a greater model, I think are some of the things we're seeing some great teams doing.
Fantastic. So seeing all these symptoms, right, we might be quick to implement, for example, new employee wellness programs or, new benefits that keep employees happy, right? And I can tell you that I know from speaking to other, other startups and other companies that reach out to SHRM Labs, that a lot of companies out there are thinking about, how do we keep our employees happy, especially with the retention issues that are out there. But what do you think is truly causing the problems we're seeing at the team level?
Yeah, I think I think we're talking a lot about symptoms of the actual root causes, and I think a lot of it is that lack of visibility. It's that lack of a platform by which employees are able to contribute both from a productivity standpoint as well as a culture standpoint. So from our perspective, if we're actually looking at some of those hidden factors and we're measuring them in a way where we can take action on them and we understand the behaviors that are manifesting because of those problems, then we can get to some of those root problems. So I really think it starts with that visibility before we start treating the symptoms. It's important to treat the symptoms, but I think it's more important to have the visibility into what's causing the symptoms.
Got it. So how can we make sure our teams and the leaders of this team are able to effectively create a positive experience for employees, right? Because I understand, yeah, you get access to the data and all that, but then where do you go from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to create the processes and tools, and it's great to have guides and playbooks to support you with that. So I think it comes around talking about the issues around the work and not just the work itself. So like just one small example, we drink our own champagne here, and we were digging into how do we optimize our performance. And one of the key issues that elevated was in the startup world, not everybody was clear about the roles and responsibilities and accountability, metrics that we were using.
Mhm.
So we actually used that as a starting point to identify quarterly goals and OKRs, implement RACI against those, so we understood who was responsible, who was accountable, and then track those over time. So we used the model to collect the data. We dug into what were the root causes versus the symptoms of not feeling like, hey, can I really stand up and say, I don't know who's in charge of this, or I don't know who's accountable for this? So I think it's that process of, once again, taking the model, using the data, and then taking action on it in a way that everybody contributes to and feels connected to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering from our audience out there, I wonder, what other people are seeing out there. So, maybe for all of you listening out there, if maybe you could comment or add a comment in there, we'd love to hear from you. So can you think of any valuable resources that, our audience, HR professionals, the majority of HR professionals that are watching today might find helpful in improving teams in their workplace, or at least providing the leaders, right, of those teams with the right tools?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously SHRM is a great resource. We have a lot of resources on our blog at RallyBright. We actually ran a study focused on inclusive collaboration that folks can download. I think those are interesting starting points. I think looking at psychometric testing for employees and understanding various personality styles. So, pick your flavor, so to speak. I think those are great things to dig into as we start thinking about how do teams behave around the work versus just focused on delivering the work. And obviously digging deeper into things like conflict styles and how do teams actually productively surface and resolve conflict, I think are also important.
Yeah, and as somebody who has gone through the like the DISC assessments, strength finders, and all that, I think that those are key to taking the first step and beginning to understand everybody that is part of your team, right? Firsthand makes a huge difference without a doubt. So in the beginning, I mentioned how this is a very timely topic, what we're talking about, because 2023 is only 2 weeks away, right? There's a lot of uncertainty that people are discussing about the upcoming year, right? Lots of things out there in the news, right? So what do you think are some things that teams should consider to stay on track and to even perform at a higher level in 2023?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, make sure the team is aligned around their shared purpose. So get clear on what the team is actually working to accomplish beyond just the work. And I think that's going to help. The other thing is obviously empathy and, servant leadership is really important from our perspective, but be aware how your people are feeling. And that's not just asking about their days. That's keeping an eye on how contributions are being recognized and valued. It's making sure that, while the work is hard and challenging, it should also be a safe space for them to show up as who they are. And that will foster greater inclusion, retention, and job satisfaction.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. John, thanks so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Once again, if you're interested in learning about RallyBright, and how they are innovating in the workplace, please visit rallybright.com. Also, thank you all for tuning into the SHRM Labs Workplace Tech Spotlight. If you enjoyed this live stream, please share it using the hashtag SHRM Labs or Workplace Tech or SHRM. This is actually our last Workplace Tech Spotlight for 2022, but we will resume on January 6th, and we actually have a very special treat for you on January 6th. So hope you are going to be able to join us then. In the meantime, please visit shrmlabs.com to stay up to date. And once again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy have a happy holiday, and we'll see you in 2023. Thanks, everyone.